Hi, Adana. It's so nice to see you today. So
Nice to see you as well.
thank you. So before we get started, I want everyone to know who exactly you are. This is Adana Tillman, the fiber textile artist, who's my favorite right now, and whose work I'm so excited to learn about. So Adana, like where I like to start these conversations usually is, your personal background, your interest in art. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
My background. I would like to say that I've been in visual arts since I was a little wee one. Um, I've been sewing with my mother since I was little, working on her quilts, and she would help me do like little small projects like pillows and whatnot. And then I would spend my time watching Bob Ross paint his happy trees. Um,
Everyone has like a Bob Ross touch point, I
Everyone,
think.
he has touched so many lives. And I don't know if he ever really realized, but I mean, it's like in my brain. PBS was, and I was little and people couldn't understand, like, she's really a little kid focusing on him painting is an odd thing. But yeah, I loved watching him. So that kind of routed me into going into a visual arts program in school. So, I started that and I kept on sewing. My mom would help make my homecoming dresses in high school. And, then I precipitated into college where I kind of took a break from the visual arts. I didn't major in fine arts. Um, I didn't really get back into the visual arts and starting an art career until about 2016, 2017. I went the usual route. I was in banking for a while,
No
trying
way.
to do the traditional, route, but realized that wasn't really for me. And then deciding, going with your passion. If you're really working at your passion, the ball will start rolling, and that's what's been happening. So that's a little bit more about me and how I got to where I am right now.
Yeah, and so is this, I know we spoke once before and there was a beautiful quilt in the background, and I think it's the same one as
It
today.
is.
So you want to give a little bit of inside scoop about
Oh,
what you're sitting in front of?
this is called, I hope I get the name right. The pattern is called Diabolical Jane, which I thought was such a cool name.
Yeah,
Um,
seriously.
this quote was actually done by my mother. She's been working on it at home, and I wanted to use it as my background because I loved all the fabrics and patterns that came into making it. So I was like, hey, can I use it as my Zoom background? She's like, sure, while I'm on a break, but make sure everybody knows who made it. And I was like, I will do. But
Yes.
yeah.
And I remember I was fangirling your page. I went to your website, of course, and I read your bio. And I remember something about how, like, I mean, one of the ways you learned was by sitting on your mom's lap. And I think that's so sweet. Do you guys have a very strong relationship?
We sew together all the time. If I'm visiting her, she visiting me. We actually, this past weekend, which was really fun, we drove to Pittsburgh and went to the conservatory, the botanical gardens there. And then afterwards, we like to go to different quilt shops. So we went to two quilt shops afterwards and we got a great haul of some new fabric. So that was really fun. And she's making me some pajamas.
Oh my gosh, a pajama connection during COVID times is
Exactly.
a
I was like,
lot.
as soon as you get done, I'm going to be living in those.
Oh, is it gonna be like the type that you button up the shirt? Like,
Yes.
oh, the like
I've already
classic.
said there's gonna be buttons. There I have a pocket, a chest pocket. There's gonna be pockets in the pants, of course. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I hope you post them because they sound like they're gonna be beautiful.
Oh,
And if
will
you start
do.
selling them, I might have to just to save
I
everything.
told her it was coming out. It is so pretty. It's a really pretty blue with purple piping along the pants and the pocket. I was like, these are gonna be so cute. I'm gonna
So
love
cute. And also just, I mean, it's like wearing a hug. Like that's so sweet that your mom gets to be part of your like cozy time of
it.
day.
Yes. I love that. Wearing a hug. That's cool. I'm gonna say
Yes. And you talked about these quilting shops. So, I mean, I might be going down a rabbit hole now, but I'm kind of curious. Like, you just put into Google Maps like quilt shops. Like, how do you find your network of
exactly.
places?
Because I like to support a lot of mom and pop shops and
Yeah.
shopping local. So really, if we're into a new city, or I just type in quilt shops and look up a few. Sometimes it can be hit or miss. Sometimes it might not be what you're looking for. When we were in Pittsburgh, we went to two. The first one was kind of iffy. Didn't really have a selection that we were looking for, but the second one was a gold mine.
No.
They had everything. It was, oh, I wish I had more money, but yeah, it was gorgeous. They had a great shop. The ladies were wonderful. But yes, it was, I just typed that in and just kind of, shoot in the dark, just go blind, just go for it. And it's just an adventure.
Oh my, and when you go in, like, I don't know, are there certain fabrics that you're looking for? Like, I need X, Y, and Z. I mean, is there a going rate? Like, is there much science or calculation to this?
There isn't. And that is how you develop a gigantic stash of fabric. I don't go in looking for exact colors or exact patterns, because I like to mix patterns when I'm working. So I really just look for anything that sticks out to me, that grabs my attention. I might look, since I work with I try to work within a very variation of skin tones. So I might look for things like different browns, different hues. Those things I might try to look for a collection for. But anything besides that, cotton, silk, whatever, just whatever appeals to me, I'm gonna grab it. It might work with something I already have, or later on I might find something else that goes with it. But yeah, there's no rhyme or reason. I'm just picking what I like. And I like to that when they cut it for you, you can ask for a half a yard. I try, or a yard, or however many yards you want. Safe bet, I usually go for like a half yard or a full yard of fabric. So you have enough to do what you want to do. Usually I haven't really been able to, run out of fabric and have to reorder or run to a shop. So those are kind of like safety. Half yard, 1 yard gives me what I need.
A half yard is like a foot and a half, or
yeah.
Okay. Your pieces look like they're pretty big though.
They are, but each, since I cut it in shading wise, or I cut the jacket, might be in different fabrics. I don't need a bunch of one piece. And I kind of, stitch those all together. So that's why it's kind of really collaging the fabrics together. So that's why those measurements really give me, I can move around and still have things later left for other projects.
So cool. And the collaging, I mean, it makes such a nice effect anyway. Like so dynamic. When you're going to the shop, then it sounds like, well, I don't know what it sounds like. Does the piece inspire at all the fabrics you're choosing, or are the fabrics like become, oh, this is going to be perfect for depicting X, Y, and Z? Like, how does that generally pan out?
To me, when I look back at it, to me, I'm more of, when I go to pick fabrics, I'm developing a library. To me, it's kind of what it looks like. Because when I'm at home, I have 3 bags of fabric. I got a couple drawers of different fabrics, and I try to keep them grouped into colors. So usually when I'm working on a project, let me go check my library. And then, or if I already decide on a colorway, kind of going through my fabrics and see which colors or patterns that I want to pull together. But when I'm shopping, I don't usually have a project in mind. It's more of building my at-home library of colors and fabrics.
That's a really helpful way to see it. And, actually, if I think about like a painter, if I think about a painter, they would have, a collection of their paints ready to go too. And so that makes sense. You're collecting that library. I see.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's a great way. Unlike painters, they already have their oil paints there ready to mix. I go out and I'm shopping to create my library and my paints to mix. So yeah.
Yes. There we go. We're making it. So before I pivot too much from like your mom and the history of working with quilting, on your website, you talked about how there's like this traditional art of quilting. So there's a rich history of quilting in this country. I'm maybe in other places that you can speak to. And what I love is, and what I was drawn to in your work is that, I have a lot of appreciation for history, but I love when it's manifested in a really modern, contemporary way. And maybe you could speak to like the significance of that and why it matters that we carry on those traditions.
Well, I would say, don't quote me, but like quilting is one of the oldest traditional art forms in the US, I believe. And it can be used as a form of storytelling in the quilts. I think if you walk up to anyone and say quilting now, they only think of it as a functional use of blankets, pillows, curtains, or whatnot. It's not really thought of as an art form, which it really is, in developing those patterns and putting that together. And there is a technique to sewing and all that I think people kind of forget, because we just think of it as a functional use of blankets. especially in my generation, like a quilt, you mean you just want me to wrap up in it? But I think it's a surprise to viewers when they see that it is quote unquote a quilt. But this is a form of art. It is an art piece. This is meant to be hung on the wall and admired. And I get a lot, I love when I do get questions on how it is put together, because people already have in their mind how their blankets and their quilts that they wrap up at home are already made. But they seen it as an art. They inquire more about the process of what it takes to make those, versus you thinking it's just a blanket made in in a factory somewhere. Someone has been sewing this together. You know, I'm originally from Ohio, and my mother, she would go out into the Amish country, and there's quilt shops as well.
Yes.
And you know that they would have beautiful quilts in different patterns. So it is a traditional form of artistry to me. I understand that nowadays is more think of functionality, but I love bringing that contemporary feel to it and kind of taking it out of that space and kind of shocking you how it's being used now. So yeah, I think that's really exciting about the work.
Yeah. And so when people are purchasing your pieces, are they, I mean, I guess there's public places that are buying them, there's private people. Is it going on display in like their living rooms? Like what are people using? How are quilts as art being incorporated into people's lives?
I always ask whenever I sell a piece, I ask them to send me a picture when it does find a home on a wall.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of people frame them, the smaller pieces, have them framed, and they've sent me pictures and they've had it in their living room. And others, they just have it. Sometimes I'll send it. It has a sleeve on the back that it can be hung on a bar. And you know, some people have sent me pictures of it hanging in their living room or in the foyer hallway, and it looks really great. It's something that they're going to look past or walk past every day. So it's kind of become part of their home, which I love.
Yeah, and there's and I'm gonna get to this later, but you know, there's so many stories in your quilts, and I love how they're some of them are inspired by people, some of them you make up their narratives. But before I get there, I want you mentioned that people ask you about your process, and so I'm gonna be another person who asks you about your process because I think it's very interesting.
My process, it all starts with the sketchbook. I carry one with me. There's always one in my bag or on my person. I start off a lot of the time with gesture drawings, figure drawings, because all my work is it's figurative. Um, whether I'm asking friends or family to be my models for a little while, just hey, give me 30 minutes. Can you do some poses so I can just draw those down? Or I might use online resources for pose references, which you can find a lot of those from art schools, to kind of help you get the directionality and get the proportions correct. There you go, proportions.
Thursday, I get it.
Yeah. Or sometimes if I'm out at the park, when I was able to be out at the park when it's nice, people watching, able to do some quick reference drawings that you can go back later and refine. And then kind of after that, I am transferring those drawings into the larger, scaling those up into the pattern pieces, which is out of like, I use tissue paper or tracing paper actually. And after that is the long haul of choosing the fabrics. I have gotten to a point where I might have done an entire, like I've chosen the fabrics to cut out the pieces for the entire figure. And after I looked at it, I didn't like it. And I had to start
No.
yeah, because it's not like paint where you can say I can paint over it or mix the colors a little bit more. If you cut out the fabric, it's cut. And so
Right.
I've done that a few times. So sometimes that can be my longest part of the process, is choosing the actual composition of fabrics and collaging those together before I even start sewing. But yeah. And then that's when, you know, I do the base of sewing the pieces together. And then my final is adding, I do a lot of embroidery or beading that added hand details to the work. And that's really comes to the last work piece of it.
That's so cool. I've never heard of the beading being incorporated before. Is that something that you like thought up that you'd saw inspiration for? How does it get worked in?
Because I like to have a lot of texture on my pieces. I go step back real quick. I started doing a lot of hand dyeing, which I love for the large basically prepping the canvas to me. And as my background is a lot of hand dyeing. And that with the added on figure and then having that embroidery and beading, that adds another dimension of texture that I love. Is like interesting surprises along the quilt that people have to take a second look at. They're like, what's that? What's
Yes.
going on there? But yeah, so that's just something I wanted to add more texture and more layers and more dimension to the work. And that's where I thought about adding the beading and embroidery too.
I see. I love the idea. I think you said little surprises. Like that's just so enchanting. I feel like that's so special. And I know it's pretty maybe different from it, but like tie dye is having such a moment. And if that accidentally makes someone stumble on quilting and your world, like why not? That's great.
Exactly. Why not? It is. It's like, man, that it came back with like a vengeance, that tie dye.
I have so many sweatsuit sets that are completely tie dye.
Yes.
My wardrobe
So
has
funny.
made weird shifts in
Yeah, I was like,
2021
what's
now.
happening? It looks great, but I was like, how did that happen? It
How did
came
that
back so
happen? But
strong.
it aligns very nicely. I could use my
Yeah,
sweatsuit, take a picture in front of your quilt, and I'm just
that would
set.
look so cute. No.
Anything for a good Instagram moment, right?
Yes.
So, and you mentioned pose references. So, does that mean that an art school website has a drawing of a person posed a certain way and you model it?
Well, these would be, well, when I was in art school, it would be like you kind of go into this link. It'll be a live person, well, actual person who has taken photos in each. They'll either take them in multiple poses, and then you can either turn the figure around to kind of look in each direction, and rotate the figure around and kind of see or draw from different angles to help you with proportion. So over the years, there's been a lot more added that if you're not in art school, you can still have access to the reference poses. So I save a couple of those, and you're able to look in different directions, have the pose. You can look for sitting poses, leaning poses, so you can get those proportions of the arms, the heads, how the leg is bent, those type of things. So it's really helpful if you're not able to corral your family into being your model.
Just lean like this for a few hours.
Exactly. Just give me a 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so cool that those resources exist. I'm trying to like make a comparison to like the business world. Right now I'm in school for social work, and maybe there's like templates on our website of how to write a paper in a certain type of format. And I feel like equivalent. That's awesome. So you said you studied art when you were younger, but then you had a period in college where you pivoted. And then did you come back into formal art education, or
No, I didn't do it.
how'd you
I
get back
didn't do
to
it.
it?
Yep, I didn't do it. I stayed, I did banking after school. I did business admin and did banking after school. How I got back into art was more of I wasn't looking to make a career for it at first. It was more just a creative outlet for myself, something to do with my free time that I enjoyed doing, something therapeutic, for me. And that's really how it started. And I was just working on like small pieces, like 8.5 by 11, 11 by 16. That's really what I was just working in. Just something to do Saturday afternoon. I like to do something creative. And then I just it wasn't a meaningful post. I just did something on Facebook or Instagram. I can't remember what it was at that time. And someone was like, oh my gosh, I love that. Are you going to sell it? I was like, sell it? You want to buy it? And that was like my first sale. And then I was just making more just because it's still, again, as, therapeutic creative outlet. And then I said at one point when I had maybe like 10 pieces, small pieces that I had came up with, I was like, well, let me see if I can get them out there and see what people think. And I was like asking people, if you come across an event that are looking for like artist booths, I want to take a part. Please just let me know. And a friend of mine was like, hey, this church is having an art and book fair. And he's like, I think the fees are low because, you always have to pay a fee for a fair. He's like, maybe
no, I did not know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Most
awesome.
fairs, they'll charge you a booth fee to participate. And that's and I was looking at the big fairs, that you might have in a town, and sometimes they'll want $200-$300 I was just trying to test out to see how things were going to go. So I didn't want to invest that much. So this particular church art and book fair, it was only $30.
That's a great deal.
Yeah. So it was like, I can spend a Sunday. So I set up my table and my tent in a church parking lot. And the parishioners, they would come after the service and come view all the booths. And I sold all my pieces that day.
Oh my
It was
God.
awesome. So that was my first little, like, putting my art to the public was in the church parking lot. But it was great. And after that, I was just like, oh, I tried to apply for everything, and then tried to make more and post more, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Are there any, I mean, like, that's just an amazing change of like events and then it's so
Yeah.
wonderful how it worked out. Do you feel like there was any big learnings from that process of from, the banking to the church art fair
Yeah.
to now?
um I look back and I think if I would have stayed from high school into college, where would I be now with my artwork, with my practice?
Mhm.
um since I really didn't get back into it in 2016, that's only a few years. If I graduated high school in 2003, what would you think that art practice would be from now if I would have stayed with it? But of course, hindsight's 2020. But I'm still happy where I am now. But I think back, hey, if I would have, stayed with it, where would I have been now? Um, I say the biggest thing I took from that art fair is that I wasn't charging enough for my work.
That's a recurring thing I've been hearing from people. It's like you gotta ask other people what it's worth because we have a tendency to undervalue ourselves. Maybe is that how?
Yeah, and it was actually someone who she bought a piece, and she came up to me afterwards. She said, "You're not charging enough." And I do have some art, but she's like, I'm not proficient in how much you should charge. She's like, maybe if you look into different art programs or talk with some, people who may be in the art circle and see how much you should be charging. She's like, but you should be charging way more for these. And I was
That's
like,
always good to hear though. It's like
yeah. When other people tell you like, hey, you need to charge more. That was the biggest takeaway I took from there. But yeah.
I think that it's kind of interesting how that plays in you. So your first thing was like, I wonder what this would have been like if I started right after high
Mm-hmm.
school. And the
Mm-hmm.
second one was that you were not charging enough. And I wonder if both of them come from just like, I don't know. In social work, we talk a lot about an imposter syndrome. It's like, can I really be doing this? Like, is this really the right like thing? And,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's maybe the core of both of those is like, we just have so much, I don't know about we actually, but I often have self-doubt. I don't know if that like resonates in some way, but
I do. Sometimes there's definitely bouts of imposter syndrome. Sometimes when I'm showing some place and I see the other artists and I might be familiar with their names,
mhm.
and sometimes I look, I'm here. My artwork is here as well. But then you got to think someone accepted your application or accepted your work and believed that it should be in these same rooms with these other artists. And you just kind of got to nip it in the bud. It creeps up sometimes, but I've been working to, keep it at bay and just, you're here. Other people have this, they've looked at your work and they've decided that you deserve to be here. So you need to accept that you deserve to be there as well. But yeah.
Yes, and I think it, the bright side of it is like, paint yourself. It is real. Put on your favorite outfit and like rock it because like this is
Exactly.
a
Just go out
special
there.
part of our
Yeah.
lives.
Just go out there, let them have it, do your best. And that's
Exactly.
all you can do.
So as you work through that pricing thing, I'm very interested in the technical components too. Like, what did you end up doing to figure out where the price was right?
I got accepted into, I joined I call it an artist guild. It was for female artists in Atlanta. And it was, we met monthly, and it was just all artists of all different mediums, sculptors, painters, photographers. And you kind of got together and you were able to fellowship and learn about different opportunities. We would do different workshops about writing your artist statement, about your art practice and your work.
Mhm.
And the leader of that group, her name is Tiffany. She actually helped me with my pricing because they was like, there was an opportunity for a show. And they was like, hey, Adana, we would love you to put one of your pieces in. So I did. And she saw my prices and she called me. She said, Adana, absolutely not. And she So having that mentor there was able to help me adjust my pricing appropriately. And even now, that was a few years ago, and even now, I still attend different workshops. I most recently I attended a workshop on how to price your work and be a living artist, thinking of taxes and living expenses. And it was a great workshop and able to still tweak, how to adjust your prices over time.
Yes.
So yeah.
I love the idea of being part of a group of, powerful artist ladies who are figuring it out together, or like you have the big sister who's a couple of years ahead of
Yeah.
you and can share the best practices, and then you pass them on. And I think the other component of that you mentioned is like the continuing education. I mean, it would be a great thing if you could just paint all day and nothing else
Yeah.
mattered, or quilt all day and nothing else mattered. But we live in this world where life's expensive and
Exactly.
there are bills.
Yeah, at the end of the month, you want those things covered and you want to make sure they're covered fully. And at the end of the year, you don't want to have to be paying back the government a large sum that you weren't expecting. You want to figure all that in. So like having those mentors and still continue that education, because there's always something to learn. I realize you can't sew all day.
Brave. I think it's really brave that you lean into those things and keep learning them. Because I don't know, you did banking. Maybe it's not scary to you, but for me, like the finance part is real scary. And I would
No, it's still
like,
scary.
oh, close my eyes. I don't want to see it. But it's part of it. It's absolutely, so that's awesome.
The appreciation, your equipment and all. I was like, whew, your supplies. And I was like, oh my gosh. But yeah, you just got to do it.
Gotta do it. It makes it all happen. Keeps the wheels turning. And you mentioned this term of a guild, which is really cool because I've never heard of it before. But I also know you were part of a residency, and so I'd like to understand the differences of the two. Where did the Hambidge residency fit into the equation? Yeah, maybe.
I came out. Oh, I learned about that actually from the Artist Guild. Like we would post different residencies or different artist calls for each other. And it's like, hey, you guys, the application is open for Hambidge. And, if you want to spend some time working on a particular project, that might be good for you. And I actually knew one of the other artists. She had just went to Hambidge and spent a month there. So this was in the North Georgia mountains in Rayburn Gap, Georgia. It is about 3 hours from Atlanta. And you can actually, the minimal time is a week that you can spend there, but you could spend a month, 2 months if you like, just depending on what you're looking for. And it's really just a time to set aside attention to your work, to your practice. You may have, outside of that, you may have a family or a full-time job where you're working on your art after work or on weekends. But once you go to this residency, you can really put some undivided attention to your practice, which that's what it was for me. I spent my time, I did 2.5 weeks. And I drove up. You get your own cabin in the middle of the woods, which that freaks me out a little bit. Yeah, because I'm from Ohio, and all the horror movies are set in Ohio in a cabin in the woods. And then when I drove there, they was like, okay, we're gonna show you to your cabin, and I went to their main center, and then she was like, okay, you're gonna follow me on this golf cart, and she took me like 5 miles away from the main center, up a road, and in the
and you're in a golf cart, so your car is not anywhere to be found.
No, she was in the golf cart. I had to get in my car and
okay.
And
I was like, do they make you not have a car and be 5 hours miles away from people? Because that would be scary.
I was like, hold on. And so I followed her in the golf cart, and she kept going further and further away. And I said, when is she going to stop? And so I was a little bit nervous, but it was actually wonderful. I saw a deer. I saw a bear, a black bear, which I thought, I was kind of scared, but it was cool.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so it was a wonderful cabin. It was a great getaway. Like once you get up and you get into this habit of, you get up and I can devote my whole day to my artwork if I want. So it was, and then in the evenings you would have dinner, which you could have dinner with the other artists if you liked, and which I wanted to meet some of them. So I actually got to meet a couple different artists. I met another textile artist, but she does weaving, which was really awesome to see her work.
Yes.
There was a sculptress and a writer and a musician. and the musician actually played for us one night at dinner, which was really great. So to build that camaraderie with the other artists was really cool, but able to still go back to your solitude if you wanted, and to kind of devote that attention to your practice is really great.
That's incredible. So it sounds like a residency is one way to like just create space in your life to really focus in. So that's one like very clear benefit. And then I think it's really cool. I didn't realize that there was like musicians there as well. There may be writers too. Like, is it a very abstract interpretation of like what an artist is?
Yeah, it's any facet, any medium. There's, of course, there are some residencies that may only want visual artists or they only want writers, but there are some that accept any medium. They just want to bring artists together into like a collective. But yeah, they accept musicians, composers, all of that. There was met a composer there, which is, you could hear her playing out during the day. She played a violin. So that was really nice. You would drive by her cabin and you could hear her playing. So to meet all those different type of artists, and there were older, younger, it was a complete range of people, which I think that's you benefit the most from.
Yeah. It reminds me of the only like at all example I have is the Algonquin Hotel was this place in New York City in maybe the 1920s or some long time ago when and they would have this ongoing, I guess, standing reservation at a certain time of day. These like Hemingway, different people in like the art world and the literary world would come together and have just these mind-blowing conversations. And so the fact that you can carry that out in different pockets of this country and the world still with people is
Yeah.
very encouraging and exciting to think on. Do you have to you qualify for the residency? Like you apply for it, and is that big stressful? Like what's that like?
It depends. I've had stressful applications. I've had some that were a breeze. But yeah, you have to apply for all of them. They usually ask you a series of questions, essay questions. They of course want to see your portfolio. They'll ask you for your artist statement where you talk about your work and the meanings behind it and how you got into it. And your bio. Some of them require a fee to apply, some don't. Um, if you are accepted, there are some that require you to pay a fee each week for the residency. There are some that, of course, have scholarships to offset those fees, and there's some that are free and they give you the room and board and the travel to get there as well. So it's kind of there's all different kinds.
Wow. Does that become then like a resume thing as well? Like going to a residency is not just the creation of space, but it's also like an honor.
Yes. They just released, you know what? I'm sorry. My
No problem.
laptop is actually about to go to sleep. I'm gonna get my cord on just a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh. All right, there we go. Okay, we're back in business. It was like your laptop's about to go to sleep. Oh man. Okay.
The scary little warnings where you're like, oh my
Yeah.
God, make a decision quick.
Exactly. Oh yes. There was a residency, they just announced their winners, which was the Black Rock Synagogue residency. They were doing 12 artists for half of 2021 and 2022 to spend, there's different amounts of time for theirs. It's between 1 month and 3 months in Dakar, in Africa.
No.
And Kende Wiley came up with that residency, and he was the portraiture for Obama, who did his presidential portrait. So to be awarded that residency is an honor. It is a notch on your resume. So there are prestigious residencies that artists do like to go for, and to have that honor is something that notable that you do put on your resume.
Wow, I'm learning so much. The whole residency world was very foreign to me. And now I've got the guilds, the residencies, all the things to talk about. So thank you. And your residency produced your latest collection called Black Joy. Like, did that happen during that time?
Some of it, I was able to, 2 weeks It's a good amount of time, but I was really only able to get, I would say 90% done of one piece in that amount of time. But that's where it started, kind of working on that group of work. So that's kind of where it started. I was able to really focus in on what I wanted to do, what I wanted the piece to look like, do some sketching. I took some time out and did some hiking because, you know, it's beautiful mountains out there.
Yeah.
And just really take some time for me in my practice. So yeah.
Were there specific things in that time that led to the inspiration for Black Joy, or did you go into the time knowing that that was going to be your focus?
I didn't go into it with that focus. I really went into it open, like, let's see, because I'll put that out. That was my very first residency. So I looked up and talked to people. So I know what other people expected, but still I just kind of went into it open to see, you know, talking with the other artists, how was that going to be? How was it going to be in the solitude of just me and the work? Like I didn't have any expectations. I was just hoping I'd go up there. I'm working on, you know, see what comes out of it. And it being my first one, I wasn't sure how it would go, but I loved it. I was able to start developing, do more sketches, refine sketches, and able to do some basics of the work that, you know, part of this show.
Amazing. I'd love to. So I mentioned a little bit earlier how I really like how you depict real people, you depict fictitious people with their stories that you create, and maybe you could speak a little bit to the characters of the Black Joy series.
A few of them, I'll just speak about a couple of them. There's a large piece with two girls standing. The piece is named Girlfriends. And that was really inspired by two of my best friends. Their name is Lindsay and Iris. We've been friends since we were like 8 or 9 years old. We met in Girl Scouts. But and that piece was really reminiscent of the time that summers that we spent together, which we spend that time every day we were together and just hanging out in our neighborhoods, whether riding bikes or after school. So it was really reminiscent of that relationship and that happiness and that time that we spent together, which is what I wanted to show in all my pieces, is that joy, that happiness, kind of take you into that reminiscent feel. They're still my friends today. They've seen the show. They were so happy when they heard about that piece as well. But yeah, so that was another one that was reflective of real life people. I would say one of the ones I might have developed a story for was there's a piece called It's the Curls for Me. She has large curly hair with like a bleached rimmed pattern to kind of give you an abstract of the curls. She is like this uptown girl that she just, when you meet her, she's so cool and you wish that you were best friends. And you just love her style. I love the mix of the patterns. She just has this chic kind of like New York vibe about her. Like you would spend your Saturdays in Brooklyn with her, you know, having a good time. And so that's what I was thinking about when I was making that piece. That's kind of her origin story of where she would come from.
Oh, that is so cool. And like there's definitely joy that carries through all of them. I mean, I just look at them and I'm like, oh, this would make me so happy on my wall, or like finding the hidden beads and everything like that. And it resonates with me too. I think, especially during COVID, you know, there's a lot of things pre-COVID life that happened that couldn't happen right now, and then I missed like having a party or going to a brunch, and I would actually sit in my town like under a tree in the park, and I would write about these fictitious events that would happen, and it made me happy. And I feel like maybe for the quilting, it made you happy to have this fictitious friend in New York who
Yes, like it's just like it's taking me out. Like I miss art parties, like gallery openings. Those were fun. I miss like going out for dinner with your friends.
Yes.
Or like I was a big music festival. I'm a music festival junkie. I would go to every musical festival there is. Multiple each year. I would go to at least 2 or 3 a year.
Do you have a favorite one? I have to ask.
Say it again.
Do you have a favorite one?
Hold on.
Make you choose. No, I'm just kidding.
I went to Made in America 3 years in a row in Philadelphia. Those were so much fun. That might be my favorite. But then I did Midtown Music Festival in Atlanta 2 years in a row. that Made in America was better with
Oh
Jay-Z
my
and
goodness.
Beyonce, and there was
You
Coldplay. Yeah,
see Beyonce in concert? Oh, I'm
yeah,
jealous.
and like yeah, and there's Coldplay, and then I love Coldplay, and I went with my cousin, and of course, we would have multiple stages, and we would get the layout of the day, and we would run back and forth to stages, and to make sure we could see everybody. And we're
Oh,
there from like, what are you there from like noon to like 10 o'clock at night? It was the best.
that's so cool. We got to get you back to a festival. We need to this need to happen
Exactly.
again.
And the style that I would see at those festivals, you would see that in my work. The mixing of the patterns, the really out there fashion, and I see it now. I represented those in a lot of the works as well.
That makes sense to me now. I can totally see that. Oh, that's so cool. What a great insight. So, I mean, I'm so thankful to you, Adana. And as we start wrapping up, I want to ask you a little bit more meta questions. What do you think art matters to this world? Why are you passionate about being part of this community?
I feel like society kind of puts it second place now. Back whenever anyone looks back at a culture, you kind of look at the arts of the culture. To me, I feel like that's kind of how you define that culture, by the artwork, the pottery, the music. It kind of defined it, and I feel like that's how you always kind of you use it as the face of that generation of that culture. And I think that we forget that, and kind of putting it as the second place, or even wiping it out as well in classrooms and things like that, which I think is horrible. That we need to remember that whenever we look back at any culture, you always looked at the arts first. So we should be looking at the arts now. And I like to be part of that and bring students back. I just did a couple talks with my old high school and my old middle school,
Really?
and kind of bringing that arts back to them. Like, you can continue this on. This isn't just a class you have to take. This should be a part of your life. Visual arts, whether it be music, sewing, painting, whatever, but there should be that creative space in your life. But yeah.
Yes, I think it's so great for those students and for me and hopefully anyone who listens to this to see you thriving as an artist by
Yes,
profession and that this is a real thing and that's really just going to be I hope very exciting for a lot of people.
I
Uh,
hope so too.
on the flip side of that, do you collect other people's art? And if so, what's that process like for you? What are you looking for? And do you have any advice for us who are in the market, not just for your works, but in general?
Yeah, I won't plug myself there. No.
You totally should. You rock it. You deserve it.
Yes, buy my art, buy it. I just started collecting, which, if you do have the disposable income to do it, I fully suggest and hope that you do. I just started. I bought a print from an artist I have been following for a while. I was able to get a print from her. Um, and I really look for, and there's actor sculptress. She is releasing a limited series of sculptures next week. And I already like emailed her, and I have it set aside for me. I was really excited.
Oh my gosh.
Her name is Alex Swavani. And I was so excited. She was like, "Yeah, it's going live next week." I said, "I am ready. I will not miss out this time." But I don't look to look for pieces that might go together or they complement each other. I look at the artist and the work by themselves and for what they are, and is it something that I'm drawn to, or something that I enjoy. And I want to collect in that manner versus looking for a cohesive collection. I just want to look at the artist and the work for what that artist and that work is, and develop my collections after that. And then, buying um, what makes me happy or what I would enjoy to have in my home. I don't really look for what's going to appreciate and value over time. I just want something in my home that I'm going to enjoy. So that's really what I look at. And I think will be most enjoyable for anyone collecting art is if you kind of take that versus a more business approach of it. Like, is this going to appreciate over time? Are they very popular? Looking for things that you'll enjoy to look at, because it can be part of your home and it'll be part of your daily life if you're hanging it. And you want those things that you enjoy around your home and in your space.
Yes, I think it goes very well with what you said before too of like, you know, culture becomes the face of a generation, and art is part of that culture. And you know, art and culture are not calculated things. Like the good art and the good culture are just like,
Yes,
you know, no one in their right mind could put it together to be this is like how it pans out. And so
yes,
go with
exactly.
your
I think it's
gut.
better that way. Let's
Yeah.
not try to put a, a calculation to it. Just kind of let it be what it wants to be.
Are there ways that you end up stumbling on these sculptors and these artists that you become passionate about?
The sculptor, I met her, it's been 4 years now. I met her through the Artist Guild.
This
Because
guild
from
is
there,
like
yeah,
a
it went
gold
through
mine.
yeah, because from there I went to like different art shows, openings, or there might be different artist talks where I might meet someone else, and then like, oh, I love this, and you just keep tabs on that person over the years. So that was one of those, and I was just waiting. I was like, I'm just waiting. Before I wasn't able to purchase. She sold things beforehand, and I wasn't able to purchase. That was like, I'm ready now, and it just happened, at this in sync time, and I was like, yeah,
I'm excited for you to get to pick up these pieces. It sounds like it's
yes,
going to be really
I'm
special.
so ready. She like sent the message yesterday. She's like, it'll be live next week. I was like, the series will go. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm ready.
I am not missing this. On
Exactly.
calendar, big red
Yes.
underlined, all the
hmm
things.
hmm
That is great. And so, okay, on our last note here, Adana, what do you want people to leave knowing about you and your work? You know, we don't get to talk to everyone who, or you don't get to talk to everyone who buys your stuff, maybe. I don't know, like everyone who's influenced by you. If you could, what would you say to them?
Um, I am an open book. If I do try to talk to everyone who has purchased a piece, I try to make it a point to reach out to them. I really want people to see themselves in my work. That's why I leave a lot of the facial details out. And then when I have met people that's like, hey, I know someone or I see myself in this work, which I love that. That made me so happy. So that's really, I'm trying to represent a more contemporary view of my life in my work. So I hope people do see that as well as others. So I really want them to know that some people think artwork or artwork collecting or viewing art is out of reach or maybe not for them. And I just want people to know that art is for all. You can go to any gallery. You can speak with any artist, go to any artist talks. Don't think that that's something out of your reach, and just enjoy the artwork, that the artwork is meant to be enjoyed by all and not by an elite or class, and it's for everyone.
That means so much for you to say that. I think it's so true. I'm so inspired by what you do, and I love that in this conversation, even I've learned about, you know, pulling in from history and pulling in from daily life, and just like making it accessible to everyone by, you know, creating art that you can insert your own story into. I think that's
Exactly.
amazing how that
Yes.
all comes together in your work, and I'm excited to keep learning about this world of textiles, and what it means in the modern day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Oh my gosh, it was my privilege completely. I was so excited getting ready today, and it's just been such a joy.
And I love your top. I meant to say that earlier.
Oh, thank you. I gotta pick the outfits to look different enough from the last time. You know, the bottoms are always pajamas or something
Yeah,
comfortable, but from the top up, we are organized.
exactly.
Oh, thank you.